So in this video, I'm going to talk about the idea of Sabbath or a day of rest, which I think is a really foundational spiritual practice and one that we just sadly neglect, I think, as American Christians. This tradition goes way back to the beginning in the Bible. In fact, in the first chapter of the Bible, when God is creating things, at the end, after he's made the created world, he rests, and he asks us to do that in imitation of him. We see this showing up again in the Ten Commandments. There's important things like not killing people and not taking their stuff, not stealing, and right up there with those is this idea of Sabbath. So what this idea of Sabbath or Shabbat actually is it's simply a day of rest. It's a day that's kind of bracketed and different and special in some way from the rest of the week. I think we've lost a little of the potency of the idea, just in the fact that we kind of expect weekends at this point. We expect a break from work, which is not something that most people in the world are privileged enough to experience. It's not something that most people in human history were able to do. So it takes an intentional choice to cease working, to stop doing things. And so this idea of Sabbath or Shabbat, or day of rest, in the original language, it kind of has two big meanings. One is stopping, ceasing, like I was just talking about a little bit, and the other one is keeping or holding. And I think both of those aspects are important. So traditionally, Sabbath was 24 hours when you really weren't allowed to work, weren't allowed to do your normal routines. And I think that this can be something that's negative and oppressive, and sadly, that is the way it's been practiced in a lot of people's lives. There's the old blue laws. There were all the things you're not allowed to do on Sundays: no playing cards, no hanging out with friends. In Jesus' day, it was very oppressive. You were not allowed to carry things. You were not allowed to rescue people. You were not allowed to help people in a lot of ways. And I don't think that was ever the intention. I think God's intention was always for this to be a gift. It was always intended to tell us a little bit about who God is and what his heart is and how he wants to relate to us. There should be an aspect of rest and enjoyment in that. So I think the stopping aspect is partially to give us that perspective. We as Americans, we tend to overwork. No matter who you are, no matter what your job is, we tend to put in more time and energy, and we tend to have our identities pretty tied up in that. I am valuable because of what I do. I'm valuable because of what I accomplish. And so I think God is offering us a gift and a reminder that no, we're not valuable because of what we do and what we accomplish. We're valuable because he says we're his children, because he felt we were worth dying for and restoring to our full humanity. And so Sabbath is just a good way to remind it. We don't just stop when it's convenient, when we get all our work done. We stop when it's time, and that's that intentional piece. We go up and get as much as we done as we can to that point, but when it's time to stop, it's time to stop. And so I think a piece of the stopping probably has to do with looking at our normal routines. We shouldn't be working. Most of us probably shouldn't be looking at our email, which reminds us of work and gets our mind fixating on work. Many of us probably shouldn't be on social media at all, just because of the stress that adds, the normal routines. I would also suggest if we have certain, I don't know, just kind of comforts that we always go to. If there's, if you're a binge watcher, if there's a certain, if you like to play video games, if you always cook, if you have just certain ways you find yourself always going to as a form of relaxing. That's the easiest, most natural, the kind of default thing you do to relax in the evenings. I might suggest that maybe you do take a break from that on Sunday, some way of making this day feel really different and really special. In the original language, there, of course, was that keeping and holding aspect as well. I think this has kind of two pieces. One is there should be something special about these days of Sabbath. There should be something you look forward to and that you enjoy. So if we're going to cease kind of our normal ways of relaxing, if we're going to take a little break from the normal ways we relax, I think we should have something to look forward to, something special, something that's almost it's self-indulgent. It feels a little silly that we know on Sabbaths we get to do. I think that that is a reminder and an expression of the fact God loves us and wants us to rest and be happy. There should be something we can look forward to going into a Sabbath. This is an expression of God's love for us. And I think an important aspect of this Sabbath keeping, of this day of rest, is figuring out a way to spend in God's presence. And I think it should be the same thing. I think this is something that shouldn't feel like a chore. So if you're, have some heavy theological problem you're trying to deal with, don't spend your time studying or worrying about that. Spend some time in a devotional or with music that's just meaningful and easy and relaxing to you. There should be an aspect of connecting with God. There should be an aspect of worship that is part of Sabbath. So again, Sabbath should feel bracketed by stopping a lot of the things we do day in and day out, hopefully resting and recreating our souls. And Sabbath should be something we look forward to, that we can enjoy and we can connect with God and just play and enjoy in His presence. So I think it's a gift, something we should be doing, but it does take some discipline and practice to actually do it, which is kind of what this next video is going to be about, kind of the nuts and bolts of how to actually set aside Sabbath, because I just think it is kind of counterintuitive, even though it sounds really easy, but I also think it's really, really important.